Here we go. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Gloria Charland, and I'm with the Sierra Club National Toxics Team Harmful Algal Bloom Sub-Team. I'd like this evening to be as interactive as possible. Please raise your hand or post in the chat at any time. Debbie Neustadt is going to help monitor, so she'll be interrupting me so we can discuss your point or question. I'm not an expert on septic systems, though I've learned an awful lot through this research. As you'll see, septic system regulations vary a lot from area to area, so your local knowledge will be very helpful. Please chime in. So this is a national report on how septic systems, formerly on-site wastewater treatment systems, are regulated across the United States. The single most important idea to land up front here is there is no national septic code. Instead, we run a layered system, a thin federal floor under heavy state and most often county level control. Roughly 1 in 5 US households depend on these systems, so this touches more than 60 million people. We'll cover the architecture, the permitting life cycle, what varies by jurisdiction, two flagship state programs, the trends reshaping the field right now, chiefly nitrogen pollution rules, and what actions your group or chapter can take with a toolkit to help. Let's define the thing before we try to regulate it. A septic system is simply an on-site wastewater treatment system for properties not on a public sewer. The elegant part, a conventional system uses no chemicals and no external power. Gravity moves the water, solids settle out, naturally occurring bacteria break them down, and the soil finishes the job. Sounds good, right? It's used by more than 1 in 5 US homes. Four components to know: the septic tank, where separation and digestion happen, the distribution box, which splits flow, the drain field, a set of perforated pipes, and the soil, which is actually the final treatment step. Keep that last point in mind. The soil is the treatment plant, and that's why regulation is so much about soil and siting. This is the whole basic system on one slide. Just follow the water from left to right. It starts at the house. Every drain, toilet, sink, shower, and the washing machine all flow to one pipe. That pipe feeds the septic tank, the buried box in the middle. Inside the tank, gravity does the work. Heavy solids sink to the bottom as sludge. Grease and oils float to the top as scum. And the relatively clear liquid in the middle, called effluent, is what moves on. Baffles at the inlet and outlet keep the scum and sludge from escaping. The effluent leaves through the distribution box, which spreads it across the drain field. Those perforated pipes sitting in gravel. From there, it trickles down through the soil, and this is the real treatment step. Soil microbes remove pathogens and nutrients before the water reaches groundwater. Okay, so these are the upgrades you'll run into most often. The big two are the aerator and the sand filter. Those are the ones people actually come asking about. Think of an aerator as an air pump for the tank. Give the good bacteria some oxygen, and they chew through waste way faster. So what comes out the other end is a lot cleaner. My son has one of these in Louisiana. His place is next to the Mississippi River levee, And the soil is river deposited clay, which is not very capable of the microbial digesting required, and the water table is too high. His aerator is required by the Louisiana Department of Health Sanitary Code. The sand filter is basically a giant coffee filter made of sand. The water trickles down through it and it comes out polished before it ever reaches the drain field. The other four are the supporting cast. The effluent filter is a cheap little screen that saves you from an expensive clog. The pump kicks in when your drain field is uphill or you need to spread the flow out more evenly. Disinfection is the last step. Kill the germs piece for when the water's headed somewhere sensitive. And peat or media filters are a nice option when the lot's just too tight for anything standard. Bottom line here, you can get pretty advanced treatment without ripping out the whole system. I'm having trouble here. This is the part people always want to know. Do I have to do this or do I just want to? The left column is the want to stuff. Maybe you've got a small or awkward lot where a normal drain field just won't fit. Maybe you're tired of clogs and smells and backups. Or your well is right there and you'd sleep a little better knowing that cleaner water is going into the ground. All optional, but all real reasons folks upgrade. The right column is where you don't get a vote. If your soil fails the perk test, too tight, water table too high, bedrock too shallow, the health department is going to make you add treatment. Same story if you're near wells, lakes, or wetlands, or if you're in one of those nitrogen sensitive watershed areas, which is a big deal along the coasts. And then the classic one, your old system fails, or you add a bedroom and bump up the daily flow, and suddenly an upgrade is on the table whether you planned for it or not. Quick heads up, that required column really does come down to your specific county's rules. All right, quick framing before we get into the weeds. A lot of people don't realize just how many homes run on septic. It's roughly 1 in 5 in the US. And every one of those is quietly putting treated wastewater into the ground somewhere. The tricky part for clean water, folks, is that it's a non-point source. There's no single point pipe to point at. It's thousands of little sources spread across a watershed. So it's really hard to track and regulate. And here's the kicker I'll come back to at the end. A septic system doesn't have to be broken to be a problem. Even one that passes its inspection can be leaking nitrogen the whole time. Keep that in the back of your mind as we go. So what's actually coming out of these systems? Four main things. Nitrogen is the big one. Honestly, if you remember just one thing, make it this. A normal septic system barely touches nitrogen. So it flows straight down into the groundwater and eventually into lakes and estuaries where it feeds algae. Phosphorus is usually grabbed by the soil, so it's less of an issue, except in sandy or waterlogged ground. And it's the main thing that causes algal blooms in freshwater lakes. Pathogens are the germs, bacteria, viruses, parasites, and those that close down beaches and shellfish beds and get into people's wells. And then the newer worry, everything we flush and pour down the drain, medications, cleaners, PFAS, hormones, a lot of it just passes through and can wind up in drinking water. Okay, so how does it actually go wrong? Left side first. Sometimes it's the site itself. Soil too wet, too shallow, or too sandy. So the effluent reaches water before the ground can clean it. And a huge one is just age and neglect. Nobody pumps the tank. A pipe cracks, roots get in. and it becomes a slow leak that nobody notices. Density is a sneaky one. Put enough systems close together around a lake or the coast, and you overwhelm the landscape, even if each one separately is fine. Sometimes it's overload, too much water going in, or that clogged bacterial mat in the drain field, and sewage either ponds on the lawn or shoots past the soil untreated. Some places still run cesspools, like in Hawaii, or straight pipes that were never really treating anything. And flooding and rising water tables, which is only getting worse. You saturate the drain field and lose the dry soil layer that does all the actual cleaning. And usually it's a combination of these, not just one culprit. And here's where it all lands, two directions, down into the groundwater, which matters a ton if you or your neighbors drink from a well. Nitrates, which are a real health concern, especially for infants, plus pathogens and chemicals moving through the aquifer. Or out onto the surface water, lakes, rivers, the coast, where the nutrients set off algal blooms and those low oxygen dead zones, kill fish, wipe out seagrass and shellfish, and shut down beaches. Same pollution, two exits. And this is the point I flagged at the very start, the box at the bottom. A conventional system passing its inspection still removes almost no nitrogen. So it's not not failing and not polluting are two totally different things. And that gap is basically the whole reason clean water advocates care about septic in the first place. Solutions include advanced treatment, better siting, and nitrogen reducing upgrades. Septic isn't a rural curiosity. It's a mainstream infrastructure. Again, about 1 in 5 US households use it, more than 60 million people. And roughly a third of new development is built on decentralized systems. Reliance is intensely regional, which is the chart on the right. New England is the highest, about half of all the homes in Maine and New Hampshire. The Southeast is also heavy, roughly 48% in North Carolina, around 40% in Kentucky and South Carolina, against a national average near 20%. Keep that regional skew in mind. It's a big reason oversight is pushed down to states and counties that understand local soils and density. Here's the mental model for regulations. 3 layers. At the bottom, a thin federal floor. The EPA sets guidance and has a few narrow legal hooks, but it does not permit ordinary home systems. In the middle, states set minimum standards, siting, design, inspection, and increasingly nutrient limits under their public health authority. At the top and carrying the most weight, local or county health departments actually issue the permits, do the inspections, and frequently layer on stricter requirements. Practical upshot, when someone asks you what are the septic rules, the honest answer is almost always, what county is the property in? The federal role is real but narrow. Most importantly, the EPA does not regulate ordinary single-family septic systems. What it does do falls into 4 buckets. 1, guidance and coordination. It issues technical manuals and a renewing partnership that states borrow from. You can check out their website. 2, the Clean Water Act, which mainly governs point sources, but a system that actually discharges to surface water can need a NIPID's permit. 3, the Safe Drinking Water Act. Large capacity septic systems are treated as Class 5 injection wells to protect drinking water. And 4, money. The Clean Water State Revolving Fund bankrolls, installs, and upgrades. So we have a floor and a checkbook, but not a national rule book. Who actually administers the program tells you how much the rules will vary. Model A, the norm, is where county or local health departments run permitting and inspection. That's most of the country. The cost is there is a big variation even within one state. Model B, a handful of states run it centrally. Rhode Island and Minnesota administer directly. New Hampshire does state design review, which yields more consistency. And Model C, the outlier, Michigan has no statewide septic code at all. So each of its 83 counties writes its own rules. When you hear septic regulations, remember which model you're in. Then you'll have an idea of how much homework you have to do locally. Although the details vary, the permit process follows the basic five-step arc almost everywhere. One, there's a site and soil evaluation, the classic percolation or soil test, which determines whether the land can treat effluent and how big the drain field must be. Two, design approval with a licensed engineer required for non-standard or advanced systems. Three, the installation inspection. An inspector views the open trench and take before backfill. This step is effectively universal. It's required in all 50 states for new construction. Or the as-built record goes into the property file. And five, for advanced systems, those with add-on components, an ongoing operating permit, usually tied to a maintenance contract. Notice the gap we'll return to. Routine inspection of conventional systems after this is rare. When people get tripped up, it's usually on one of these four. Setbacks, how far the system must sit from wells, surface water, and property lines. This is to protect drinking water, but vary from place to place. Tank standards, minimum size, and whether you must use a two-compartment tank or an effluent filter. In several states, a single compartment tank actually fails inspection. Sizing is driven by bedroom count. The EPA plans around 60 to 70 gallons per person per day. And advanced systems are required where soils can't do the job or where receiving waters are nitrogen impaired. That last one is the fastest moving area, and it's the theme of the two state spotlights coming up. Oversight is strong at the moment of installation and patchy after that. Three regimes. Installation inspection is universal. Point of sale inspection is the sharpest dividing line. Massachusetts and Arizona require it statewide at transfer, but across much of the South and West, it happens only because a lender demands it, not the state. Periodic inspection of conventional systems is genuinely rare. Wisconsin's 3-year cycle is a notable exception, and advanced systems with pumps and control typically need annual service. The card on the right is the homeowner takeaway most people never hear. The EPA says to inspect every 1 to 3 years and pump every 3 to 5. Outside of those triggers, a lot of systems simply run unwatched until they fail or the house sells. First flagship program, Massachusetts, especially Cape Cod. Title V, Massachusetts State Septic System Regulation, already ran one of the country's most developed septic programs, including a statewide transfer inspection. In 2023, the state amended it to attack nitrogen pollution that has been choking the Cape estuaries with algae. 30 watersheds were automatically designated nitrogen-sensitive areas. New construction there must install the best available nitrogen-reducing technology, and existing systems must upgrade within 5 years, unless the town instead obtains a 20-year watershed permit and solves it community-wide through installing sewers, alternative systems, aquaculture, and the like. The reason this is contentious is the right-hand column. Septic is about 85% of the Cape's wastewater and the main nitrogen source, and retrofitting a home for nitrogen removal can run $30,000 to $35,000. So the state paired the mandate with tax credits and low interest aquafund loans in Barnstable County. And here's Florida. In Florida, the driver is the same, nitrogen, but the scale is larger and the politics are different. Florida has about 2.6 million conventional septic systems feeding algal blooms and red tides. House Bill 1379 in 2023 requires enhanced nutrient reducing systems in designated impaired watershed areas. In the Indian River Lagoon program specifically, new systems must be nitrogen reducing as of January 2024, and existing properties must connect to sewer or reach at least a 65% nitrogen reduction by 2030. Then House Bill 645 in 2025 opened a faster path, a general permit for yard scale distributed wastewater treatment units that must strip at least 80% of nitrogen. As in Massachusetts, mandates come with grants and rebates, often up to about $10,000 locally. Here's 3 states, 3 approaches. This slide pulls the whole comparison together. The big thing I want people to take away is the bottom bar, so I'll build up to that. Starting with the driver row, Florida and Massachusetts are both fighting nitrogen in their coastal and spring waters, while Louisiana's problem is totally different. It's the soil itself, wet clay that can't soak up the effluent. That difference drives everything below it. Then we have the laws, the triggers, the required systems. But note in row 5, Massachusetts is the only one that gives a community an out. A town can get a watershed permit and do a big shared fix, like installing sewers, instead of forcing every homeowner to upgrade. And note in row 6, Louisiana is the only one that routinely discharges to a ditch, why it drags in a whole second agency and a discharge permit. If you're a homeowner, row 8 will be of particular importance. Massachusetts is by far the most generous with the tax credit and the aquafund loans, but Louisiana leaves you mostly on your own. And the big difference, Florida and Massachusetts regulate you based on where you are. Are you inside a mapped polluted watershed? While Louisiana regulates you based on what your soil does, whether it passes a perk test. Everything else on the slide flows from that one distinction. And the common thread across all 3, none of them accept conventional system plus a passing inspection as good enough anymore. And quickly, here's some other states. I hope nobody's asleep yet. Texas has state rules, but local authorized agents do the permitting, and the common aerobic systems require ongoing maintenance contracts. California, county environmental health runs it with tougher rules near the coast. Michigan, the no-code patchwork I mentioned. North Carolina has a tiered permit structure and one of the highest septic reliance rates in the country, near 48%. In Colorado, local public health is under the state OWTS Act with a mandatory inspection before the system is buried. And Rhode Island and Minnesota, the centralized exceptions that run the whole program at a state level. These states have the same public health and water quality goals everywhere, but with wildly different machinery to get there. Pulling back, these are five forces shaping the next few years. One, nitrogen mandates are spreading. Cape Cod and Florida are the leading indicators, and other states with sensitive waters will follow. Two, a real cost and equity tension. Advanced systems can run $15,000 to $35,000, which is hard to justify on a remote rural lot with deep groundwater and no impaired water nearby. Three, funding tools are expanding in step with mandates, credits, rebates, and revolving fund loans. Four, climate risk, rising seas, higher water tables, and flooding increasingly overwhelm older systems, reframing septic as a resilience issue. And five, the structural weak spot. Because routine oversight is rare, a large stock of aging systems runs unmonitored until it fails or the property changes hands. Being the Sierra Club, it's important for us to look at possible campaign plans. First, there is no federal law that can force a homeowner to upgrade a septic tank. Septic is regulated by states and their counties. So we shouldn't waste energy demanding a national mandate that can't exist. Federal is about money and leverage. Get more clean water state revolving funds and USDA dollars flowing to septic. And lean on the EPA and states to actually set and enforce the nitrogen limits that make everything else legally defensible. The state is where the real mandate lives. That's the model bill. Map the impaired watersheds, require nitrogen reducing systems, and crucially, fund it and give communities a watershed permit off-ramp so it isn't just a hammer. And the county is where we can win the fastest. No state house required. Where an algal bloom and a willing county board line up, a county can start inspecting, inventorying, and requiring better systems near the water right away. And remember the guardrail. Every one of these tiers pairs a requirement with a way to pay for it. This is the handout version, a concrete list that Sierra Club chapter or group can literally walk into a county commission or board of health meeting with. The reason county is so powerful is that most of these don't need the state legislature. A willing county board can just do them. Walk the list. But if you only hammer two, make it the inventory and the money. The inventory, because everything else depends on knowing where the systems are. You can't inspect, target, or measure what you haven't mapped. And the loan credit piece, because is what makes every mandate survivable and politically viable. A nitrogen upgrade near water item is the one that most directly cuts the harmful algal bloom feeding load. So tie it explicitly to your local water body. And don't forget the golden rule. Pair every requirement with a way to pay for it. I hope everybody's still awake there. To close, the one-line summary of the whole deck, we have a thin federal floor, heavy state and local control, and nitrogen pollution rapidly rewriting the rules in places where water quality is most at risk. Action is easiest at the county level. If you take away nothing else, the rules are local, so verify for the specific property and watch sensitive area designations because they carry the biggest cost and compliance consequences. Oh, and so here's a toolkit for Sierra Club chapters and groups, or anyone who wants to reduce nitrogen pollution in their county or watershed. First, here's a model for a county resolution and ordinance. I'll see if is everybody looking at this now? So this is something you can take to your county board and say this is a sample resolution. You can, I've got the share on view, but you can make a copy and edit it as you wish. Part B is an ordinance, which would be a whole lot better than a resolution. Um, anyway, there's that. And here's a campaign flyer for a harmful algal bloom campaign. This is a Google slide, so you can edit it however you want once you make your own copy. And then lastly, there's another flyer just on nitrogen pollution, not mentioning HABs.
You're making all these flyers, Gloria?
Aren't they great? All right.
She likes Canva.
And that's all I've got.
So Iowa has a law that you have to have an inspection when you sell your house, except if it's in a divorce, except. But we were quite happy when that law passed.
Great.
There is a lot of information in the chat.
Okay.
There was like two things going on at once, you and the chat writers.
Oh my gosh. I should have I wish somebody would interrupt me. I can't see the chat while I'm
That's okay.
All right, let's see what we've got here.
So the last one is one that happened a long time ago here in Polk County. I don't know, the neighbors found this out. So the septic tank, the guy who comes around and collects the septic tank stuff, was they heard his discharging at night and called up and found out that he designed his house so that he could have the pipe into the creek. And he was, I think the state finally did something, because at that time, the civil district attorney had a reputation for not handling as many cases as he should have. Because I called him up and I said, could you compare the advertisements in the, at that time, Yellow Pages for the people that have license? And he said, no, I don't do that. And yep, he eventually was not the attorney, but you can run into all sorts of issues with, from simple not wanting to do the job, the work. But it was nice that the neighbors caught him.
Yes. So Matthew says he's been involved in local efforts to improve individual home treatment systems for over 5 years. Matthew, can you tell us about that?
Yes, ma'am. I live on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain and run a nonprofit called North Shore River Watch, as well as being involved with Sierra Club. But they were having problems, in Pontchartrain Conservancy, one of the larger organizations, did a study and found that 50% of the mechanical treatment plants that are required were not operating properly. And it's really made a big issue with the rivers. Most of our southern rivers have TDMLs now, and they can't add new sewage treatment to them. So it's really hurting an urbanizing area. And so St. Tiny Parish, trying to get, you know, some motion on it, ended up saying that they will inspect individual treatment plants once every 3 years for functioning, and that there are grants and stuff to help low-income people fix them. That's a short version.
All right, so they are inspecting now and they are requiring improvements and they're giving financial assistance.
Yeah, we're needed. So there's the whole part, you know, it's a complicated government process,
Yeah.
but at least they're working on it. And the big issue came up in 2011, 2012. They put in TDMLs for most of our rivers in the southern part of the parish and said you can't put more sewage into them. So businesses are running into issues getting sewer permits. Uh, New subdivisions can't be built because the parish uh, won't clean it up and expect private residents and businesses to clean it up on their own. Basically, we've been fighting to regionalize sewage in an urbanizing area.
Very good. Wow. Okay,
Yeah, I've
good.
been at this for 20 years now for fun.
Yeah. Who knew it, right? And when you were a little kid and they'd ask you, what did you want to do when you grew up?
Oh, I was a high school physics and math teacher and I retired in 20. And
Okay.
I've been doing this as a hobby for fun. And they talked me into starting North Shore River Watch when I retired.
Yeah, well, God bless you. No, I
But
just,
yeah, I'd be happy to talk with y'all anytime about this stuff.
yeah, the twisted roads our lives take.
Yeah. Oh, I remember growing up, we had a septic system, but our basketball goal was in front of it, and we'd have to have a hose to rinse the ball off every so often. Those are memories I have, so I'm glad they're working on it at least.
Very good. Michael Mullen from the Alabama chapter says HABs are not an issue in my watershed. Go watershed. Interest is more about surface and groundwater contamination, mostly fecal. Michael, did you want to talk about that a little?
Let me on like it's gonna let me. Okay. Yeah, we've got a problem. It's typically with developments out in the county or trailer parks out in the county, um, where there's an issue. You know, some of these systems have been there for decades and nothing done about it. I'm starting to get more and more calls uh, about folks, and our health departments have been, the funding has been gone down over the years. I mean, every county used to have someone that inspected septic tanks and could pull water samples if they're suspected problem. Now there might be one of those people for every 5 counties. But that's what we're involved in right now. You know, the concern being places where there's soils that are riverine deposits that have a bunch of clay and whatever, and the systems don't work. And over the years, they've gotten permitted and allowed anyway. So it's some
Hey,
backtracking to do.
did you get the electricity thing done? Yeah.
So my son is in Kansas and in a county that had pretty strict rules. And he had to put in a new septic system. And there was fields all around him. There wasn't any CAFOs, there wasn't any water, surface water. No, I think they knew where the groundwater was. So him and as a homeowner, he and the builders in the county got the rules changed so that there could be a variance so that people could prove that engineering wise they could handle a cheaper system than the $30,000 one. So he put in a new system. He wouldn't have had, it was like skirt the law and not put in a system, or change the way things are done and put in a system that works for the area they're in.
Wow, it's a big job. Ah, Albert, did you want to talk about this? Some discharging systems that do not have a proper drain field are sometimes called septic systems. Sure.
Well, I was just going to say that we have a thing in Illinois called, well, a lot of places, discharging systems. They don't have a septic field. They have a little box on the end of at the end of the pipe. It's, you know, slightly more glorified than a straight pipe. Um, and Actually, they are quite common, or they were quite common in a lot of places in the Midwest where, for one reason or another, they didn't want to bother to put in a real septic system. So they bought one of these little gizmos, and the gizmos don't really do anything. They're supposed to replace the disinfection pills every 6 months or something, but most guys never do. And the things clog almost immediately. Um, so
What
we
does
had a big
discharge into? The pipes.
your neighbor's backyard, the nearest creek, a ditch, uh, and they actually are covered by the Clean Water Act because they're discharging. The septic systems aren't covered by the Clean Water Act because they aren't discharging to the waters of the United States. If they're built properly, they're discharging underground and they're going through the septic field. But these discharging systems, and we had a big fight about them in a lot of places, um, are another problem. And I didn't really want to talk about them except this to flag that this is something. In fact, right now, uh, there's a guy getting a NIPID's permit to discharge into Lake Sarah in southern Illinois. The lake has already got impaired for phosphorus, so they're going to let him discharge pretty much directly from his toilet into the lake. Now, I find this weird because it seems to me if I bought lakefront property, I wouldn't want to put my poop in it. But I guess I'm just fastidious or something.
And he's getting a NIPID's permit.
Yeah, he's got to get a permit because he's discharging. They say he can't build a septic field, or because he doesn't have enough space.
So
Well, you know,
they're giving
that's
him a
too
variance.
bad. So if you buy a piece of property and you can't develop the way you want to, that's too bad. But that's not the way IEPA sees it. They generally figure, well, this poor man, he's bought this property, he's got to be allowed to develop it, even if he can't put a toilet there without polluting.
Michael Mullen has raised his hand.
Go ahead,
if
Michael.
Albert is done.
Don't keep hitting it twice. Something my people might look
Speak
at,
up.
probably have a less expensive enhanced system. I would encourage people to look up Dr. Billy C. Wolverton. You can put a rock reed filter at the end of your septic system and you plant plants in it, and it takes up a lot of the nutrients that otherwise would be discharged either to groundwater or your local stream. There have been some demos done in my area. Instead of a $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 system, especially if you've got a homeowner that can do some of the old their own gravel rock fill and provide their own plants, you might be talking about 12 or 15, not 25, 30 something. And the other alternative, I have not seen this done, is if you have a cluster of places, you got a cluster of close septic systems, you might be able to build a rock reed filter and take the wastewater from all of those systems from their drain fields and run them through a rock reed filter. it's been used very successfully. We've got a poultry processing plant here. It gets secondary treatment, and then the waste goes through multiple rock reed filter cells. It's basically drinkable when it comes out the other end.
What do you think a rock what filter?
A rock reed, ROC dash REED. I
Rock
would
reed.
look up
That's what I
look
thought I
up
heard. Rock reed filter.
it. It was first used at a NASA facility in Louisiana or Mississippi. Maybe it was Mississippi. Drastically cut the cost to a small community of getting effective treatment. The one I saw that was really interesting. Somebody, I think it may have been Dr. Wolverton at his house. He took the water coming out of the septic tank treatment system and actually built the rock reed filter around the edges of his sunrun. And it works so well there wasn't an odor, all
Huh.
that sort of stuff.
I will look that up. Rock reed filter. Um, Bonnie,
Anyway, I don't know if he's still alive. I know he had.
Wolverton, Dr. Wolverton. I'll look that up. That sounds interesting.
Oh,
Bonnie,
hello, Bonnie. Bonnie here. Yeah, I like your rock reed filter idea. A guy I regularly communicate with. I built some for fish hatcheries that would sequester the nutrients that come out of fish hatcheries, so that there's not excess nutrients and stuff going past them into rivers or lakes or water for that matter. Yeah, or just surface water for that matter. The problem is sometimes you can't get the roots to go deep enough to get stuff before it just filters down beyond the depth of the roots. And in winter, there's a little less sequestration into the plants. It's just, but winters are
Yeah,
getting shorter here. Heck, the growing season's almost year round here now. So,
it's not going to work well outside of the South, southeast, southwest.
oh, okay, sure, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Um, And then I think I put some things in the chat. I'm just looking up our local ordinances about septics because
yeah, I
we
know
have a thing here. Yeah, yeah. Um,
concerns about septic systems being too close to a lake.
oh yeah, yeah. Um, they drained a lake in 1924, and so people built really close, and there was an interest in reestablishing the prior lake level, but people like just built their septic's right there on the lake, and so they can't re-raise the lake level back to the historical and restore the flow to the Chehalis River. That would have been nice, but there's just no. It's like 200 houses, on a lake, and it's pretty much impossible. But our problem is like phosphorus that always goes out. Phosphorus doesn't go away like nitrogen will outgas, but phosphorus, like the hydrologist said, it just binds to soil minerals, and at some point those soil minerals just get full up of the phosphorus, and then any more phosphorus just goes on down and out, and that's when we get more of the harmful algal blooms. And some septics are built where there's not enough separation between groundwater or whatever,
So,
and things.
so Bonnie,
So
are you disputing what I found that the phosphorus does get treated and it's the nitrogen that's the problem? Is this
oh, nitrogen has been a problem in Thurston County, Washington State, in the past in surface water. Absolutely. But I guess my concern is when the phosphorus gets too high in our lakes, so that that's when that is typically when the harmful algal blooms kind of get triggered, when the nitrogen is low and the phosphorus is high, and there's probably nitrogen problems too, also with the cyanobacteria. But my understanding and what the consultants say is that when the water goes anaerobic and the phosphorus is released out of the sediments, that's when we really get the cyanobacterial blooms, or when they get toxic, I should say. Um, so there's both nitrogen and phosphorus that come out of a septic tank and go into the water. And but phosphorus was identified as for our lakes as the main culprit. So not so much the nitrogen, although I'm sure it's a
Oh,
combination.
okay.
And for a hobby, I try to ID diatoms, by the way, in lakes. That's my nerdy thing. And in ancient sediment cores.
Very good. Well, I'll send everybody the video of this and I'll make a PDF of the PowerPoint and you can have that too and the toolkit if anybody's interested. Anybody have any last comments, questions? No, all right. Well, thanks so much for
No,
coming.
no, wait. I'm sorry, I didn't get. This is Glenn Cornell from Southern California. And we've certainly had our share of problems with septic systems around here. But another problem that's looming on the horizon, and I wanted to ask you if you've heard anything about this, is cemeteries filling up. That we have a problem here in Southern California that our cemeteries have gotten pretty much maxed out. Residential areas that are, or cemeteries that existed in areas that had no residences near them. I now find that residential areas have sort of closed in around the cemeteries, and there's concern about groundwater, the cemeteries in-ground interments polluting the groundwater. Have you heard anything about that?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Well,
woof.
if you do, let me know, and if I hear any more about it, I'll let you know. How about that?
Very good. Very good. All right. Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare. All right. Well, thanks everybody, and I'm going to turn the recording off.